Today, he will be speaking about the role of tradition and hopes to lay out a roadmap of sorts for other student organizations to avoid the old-fashioned thinking that leads many to falter. Please welcome Nick.
Every college has a legend passed on from year to year. Uh, I, go this way. I love Hail to the Lion. It's actually my favorite song about Penn State, and honestly, it's very apt. Happy Valley has a ton of different traditions, right? Some of them are academic, like banging the gong whenever you turn your thesis for Schreier. Some of them are based in football. Sorry, I'll get out of that light. Like Nittanyville before the football games. Some of them downright weird. Mifflin Streak every spring semester. You're welcome for not including a picture of that, actually. Penn State is filled with these traditions, and student organizations at Penn State are absolutely no different. My name is Nick Pazuchanics. I'm the president of the Penn State Line Ambassadors, and I'm here today to talk about the role of tradition. If you ask about Line Ambassadors to anybody, they'll probably say, besides the jackets, the walking backwards, Line Ambassadors are kind of the tradition keepers of Penn State. It's one of the pillars of our organization, and we have a lot of different projects deeply rooted in the concept of tradition. One great example is Guard the Lion Shrine. Almost 50 years ago, Sue Paterno put orange paint on the Lion Shrine to get students excited about the upcoming homecoming game against Syracuse. We're still celebrating this event to this very day. We care a lot about tradition. It's a pillar of the Line Ambassador organization. Tradition's awesome in many ways. The concept connects us to the past and helps us to sort of think about all the things that have come before us. But in many ways, tradition's not so great. Tradition is kind of an excuse for antiquated thinking, or it gives us a reason to say, well, it's always been done that way, so we're just going to keep doing it that way. Today, I want to talk about how I've spent the last year as the Line Ambassador President trying to identify, address, and change things in my organization that needed to be addressed as bad traditions, and hopefully give you a roadmap to do that for yourself. So I first want to talk about why this is an important thing, right? So because that's the way it's always been done. Honestly, I think I've heard this more since coming to Penn State than practically any other phrase. Audience participation time. Who has ever heard this phrase said to them as a justification for why we were doing something in an organization? Right? Raise your hand. Yeah, absolutely. How about who's ever used this phrase to say why we're doing something? Yeah, I'm guilty of it. Absolutely. I think it's human nature to talk about the fact that since we've always done it this way, we got to keep doing it that way. But that leads us to very antiquated thinking. And honestly, that leads us to never question why. Why are we doing some of the things that we're doing? And it never helps us to improve. There are great traditions and there are bad traditions. How do we figure out which is which? So for me, when I first joined Line Ambassadors, one of the things that I noticed was that the organization definitely needed to change its demographics. We had a problem, a tradition, if you will, of circular recruitment. We relied on our members to bring other members to Line Ambassadors. We were missing pockets of the university that we definitely needed to hit to give people a total experience of what Penn State has to offer. For you to do this same tactic, ask yourself questions like this about your student organization. Ask yourself phrases like, hey, are we only doing this because it's the easiest way of doing it? Or maybe, well, that's the way it's always been done, so we're going to keep doing it that way. I think phrases like this are a good way for us to get guidelines on what we know is sort of already bad. We already probably have a concept in your student organizations right now of some of the things that are maybe making people a little uncomfortable, or maybe they're making people unsafe. If you can't justify why your organization is doing something, you probably shouldn't be doing that thing. Great, awesome. We figured out what those things are, but now what? Unless you are super lucky and your organization moves very, very quickly, we've all been part of student organizations, change takes time. How do we figure out what to do? More likely than not, your executive board or someone on it is standing in your way, saying phrases like, one, well, we've always done it that way, or maybe they're saying things like, well, our alumni are going to be upset if we make this change. Or, well, I mean, no one's ever gotten hurt in the past, why change now? This fall, Onward State posted an article where I said I was looking for a different type of student for Line Ambassadors. I didn't want to fit the mold of a conventional lamb, as we all kind of think about one. After I posted this article, I received tons of different texts and emails from Line Ambassador alumni saying, diversity's never been a problem for us, why are you addressing this? Or, we've never needed help recruiting, why start now? I've been there. I understand how that feels. It's frustrating. So what do? My step is to find allies within the organization that understand your cause and get them talking about it. Have real conversations about what matters and what doesn't in the things that your organization is doing, and then take it to your leadership. Good leadership always justifies their actions. Demand that from yours. All right, awesome. So we identified the problem, we've addressed it, but now we've got this big hole. We've been doing this thing for, in the case of Line Ambassadors, nearly 40 years. What do we change now? How do we do it? To me, this is the most fun you can have whenever you bring a new change. Everyone's always talking about how we want to leave our mark at Penn State. This is your opportunity. Replace one of the bad traditions within your organization with something better, something more meaningful, something with purpose. If you're able to do this, your organization will continue to flourish. Another great way to be able to get people to buy into this is to just get your members involved with it. Have them take ownership over the new tradition. Say, look, the old way, not working out. What do you think we should be doing? People get to make the change themselves. They're going to be much more willing to take it on. There's a real advantage to this in a college organization. If you and I, today, took a bad practice that your organization was participating in and made a distinct change, 4 years later, the organization would think that that tradition had always been that. It's a great way to be able to it's a great way to get rid of all those bad traditions quickly and implement new things with purpose and meaning. So that was a pretty high-level overview of how I believe you can take bad traditions within your student organizations and improve them for the future. Thank you.